Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Smart Nation and You Let's Learn webinar on Create a Robotic Assistant Automating Repetitive Tasks using RPA. Now, NTUC Learning Hub is proud to be the official continuing education and training provider powering the Let's Learn segment of this exciting event with something for everyone. So thank you so much for joining us early. The webinar will be starting soon. While waiting for the rest of the attendees to join in, you can also visit www.go.gov.sg/Let's Learn to find out more about the upcoming free webinars that you can also sign up for. Also, do stay all the way till the end because we do have a post-webinar survey, and 2 participants who complete this survey will win $10 fair price online vouchers. And for the busy professionals who prefer learning at your own pace, NTUC Learning Hub has made learning accessible anytime, anywhere through the online learning platform, LHub Go. Now, to help kickstart your learning journeys, we will be offering you LHub Go Discover 25 at just $20, an exclusive deal for all webinar attendees only, where each online lesson works out to be less than $1. So thank you so much for joining us here. I will be returning shortly to start the session. Meanwhile, simply sit back, relax, and we'll see you soon. Very good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Smart Nation and You Let's Learn webinar on Create a Robotic Assistant, Automating Repetitive Tasks using RPA. My name is Karen, and I'll be your host for today. Now, Singapore Smart Nation initiative is about using technology to improve the way we live, we work, and we play. And to realize this vision, it is important for Singaporeans to be equipped with digital skills so that you can take advantage of new exciting job opportunities, especially during this period of time when many of us are concerned about our careers. Now, this is why the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office and NTUC Learning Hub are glad to bring you the Smart Nation and You Let's Learn Festival. NTUC Learning Hub is proud to be the official continuing education and training provider, powering the Let's Learn segment of this exciting event with something for everyone. Now, today's webinar is on Create a Robotic Assistant, Automating Repetitive Tasks using RPA. Now, do note that this session will be recorded, so if you'd like to recap your learnings, you can always visit the Smart Nation YouTube channel. A recording of the various sessions will be made available about 2 weeks after the festival. Now, we'd also like to encourage all of you to stay till the end because we do have a post-webinar survey, and 2 participants who complete the survey will stand to win $10 Fair Price online vouchers. Now, today we have with us Matthew, who is Director for Sales Engineering and Customer Success in Uipath Southeast Asia. He has more than 20 years of experience in the software industry, with the past 12 years focusing on helping companies improve productivity and efficiency using automation. So if you've got any questions for Matthew, feel free to use the Q&A function and he will do his best to answer them. So without further ado, everybody, I'll hand you over to Matthew. Matthew, please.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this webinar. And this afternoon, we'll be talking about RPA, or Robotic Process Automation. And I'll go through a few things. It's introduction of what RPA is, how you would apply it for automating your work or some of the activities that you do on your computer. We'll talk about how do you identify processes that are suitable for RPA. And of course, I'll show you a bunch of demos as well, just to, make sure that you understand, how you can get started with RPA and how to further your learning on RPA. So let's get right to it. RPA, or Robotic Process Automation, is really about automating a lot of things that we do on our computers. It emulates what a person does on a computer, typing data into applications, your mouse clicks on applications, reading Excel, reading PDFs. These are things that you typically do on your computer. And if you have a process that's very, very repetitive, there's a good chance that RPA can automate that process for you. So imagine if you're responsible for entering orders into your order management system, right? So you receive, let's say, PDFs on a daily basis, or Excel spreadsheets that contain order details, and it's your responsibility to enter them into your order management system. These are things that we could automate very, very easily with RPA. And the good thing is, to develop automation on RPA, you do not need to be a programmer. It's what we call a low-code/no-code type of automation development platform. And it's very, very easy to learn. And I'll show you some materials actually that you could take advantage of in the demonstration later. So again, it's all about emulating what people do on their computer. And the good thing is it's also non-intrusive, meaning it will just automate your process as is. You do not need to make changes to your existing applications. Typically, you won't have to make changes to your processes as well and just automate the process as is. Although there are certain situations where you might want to standardize the process before automating it, right? Because if, let's say, when you receive orders, you either receive them via WhatsApp or via email. Sometimes you receive a phone call, right? Then it's harder to automate if the inputs are varying, right? It could be a WhatsApp message or an email or a phone call. So you do need to standardize the process. Let's say, tell all your customers that to submit orders, you have to do it this certain way, whether it's to fill in a PDF or to put it in Excel, so that when you automate, you're automating a standardized process as opposed to automating 3 different ways of receiving orders from your customers. And if you apply RPA to your process, of course, there will be benefits to you and your company, whether it's to accelerate the benefits that you want from a digital transformation program, right? So, and as you all know, with the current situation, a lot of companies are forced to become digital. And one way to accelerate digitalization is to actually apply RPA so that we can automate a lot of the repetitive, mundane processes. It will improve your customer experience as well, because if, let's say, in the example of order entry, if I can automate the order entry process, then chances are your customers are able to receive the products and services sooner, right? It also reduces compliance costs and risk, because when you automate using RPA, you're actually eliminating a lot of the errors that are introduced because the process is manual, right? If we automate your process using RPA, chances are entering orders into the system will have 100% accuracy, as opposed to maybe 90% accuracy if that process continues to be manual, right? And the reality is, not many of us, are really interested in repetitive and mundane tasks, right? I think we're going to be much happier as employees of the company we work for if we are using our creativity in our work, if we're bringing new ideas to how things should be done, as opposed to, doing manual data entry. So overall, RPA can also increase employee satisfaction and engagement, right? Because if we take away the mundane and repetitive from the responsibility of your employees, then chances are they can get involved in higher value activities and contribute more to the top line, or help you achieve cost savings through automation. All right. And what can software robots do, right? We're not talking about hardware robots here. There will not be a robot that will sit in front of your computer and help you, enter data into your applications. What we're talking about here are software robots, right? RPA robots can log into applications. They can perform data entry, read and write data into databases. It can also go to a website and scrape information from a website. So a very good use of data scraping is, let's say you're in the finance team and you need to update exchange rates into your application system, right? Because let's say your company does multinational trade, and you do need to update currency forex rates on a regular basis. So what you can do is write a robot that goes to a bank's website, scrapes the exchange rate for today and updates your applications, right, with today's exchange rates. So that can be easily done using RPA. Robots can also extract contents from documents, PDF, emails. It allows you to open emails and download attachments. Of course, robots can also make calculations, can make decisions on your behalf also. Typically, those decisions are what we call rules-based decisions. Rules are something that you can program into your robot, so that if let's say any order that's below 10,000 Singapore dollars, you can automatically, the robot can automatically apply a 10% discount and auto-approve the discount. But if the order value is above 10,000, maybe the robot doesn't make the decision. It waits for a human to make that decision on its behalf, right? So again, you can program decision making also in your robot, as long as they're rules-based. Okay. And the applicability of RPA spans across multiple functions, right? You can apply this in the area of finance, in the area of supply chain, in the area of IT, HR, customer service. And of course, it's not limited to these areas. If you're a bank, right, and you run the contact center, there are opportunities to automate a lot of the work done by your contact center agents. Or if you are a loan processor within a bank, there's also a lot of opportunities to automate activities around loan origination, activities around loan approval, and so on, right? So again, this applicability across back office functions, but there's also, I would say, vertical applications, right? There's applications in the banking sector, there's applications in the healthcare sector, manufacturing sector, and so on. So again, as long as the process is computer-centric and it's manual, repetitive, there's a chance that you can actually automate it with RPA. All right. So there are some questions in the Q&A, and I'd like to address some of them. There is a question, is the concept similar to Excel macros? To a certain extent, yes, there are similarities between Excel macros and RPA, but I would say Excel macros, as that term suggests, is very limited to automating stuff in Excel, whether it's you're consolidating data across multiple spreadsheets or generating reports. Those are things that you can automate using Excel macros. But RPA actually works with any application. It will work with the popular software applications like SAP, Salesforce, Workday, SuccessFactors, Oracle, the Oracle suite of products, etc. And it will also work with Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word. It will work with PDF files and so on. So Excel macro, I would say, is probably the predecessor of RPA. It used to allow us to automate a lot of the repetitive work that we do in Excel, but RPA does much, much more, right? And there's another question around, is there a course for this? Yes, NTUC LearningHub offers courses on RPA. So do check out the NTUC LearningHub website. And I'll also offer some online courses that you can attend. Watch out for, towards the end of my presentation, I'll talk about some of the online courses that you can attend for free on RPA also. Yeah. Let me see. Do you need programming to automate? As I mentioned, RPA is a low-code, no-code type of automation development platform. Programming knowledge helps, of course. If you have programming skills, you probably learn RPA much faster. But as you'll see later when I demonstrate this, the RPA solution from Uipath, it doesn't require any programming skills at all. Of course, you do need some maybe if you have a analytical mind and you know how to read a flowchart, you have some of the foundation knowledge required to become effective in RPA development already. Okay. All right, so that's it for the questions for now. The rest, I will continue to check out the Q&A page for any additional questions that we could answer live. But at the same time, we have Ravi, who's from NTUC LearningHub, who's a RPA instructor, can help us answer some of your questions by typing in the responses. Okay, we'll continue with the slides. I'll get back to the Q&A in a bit. All right, so you might ask, what processes should I automate with RPA? And these are some of the factors that you might want to consider, right? If the process is highly manual and repetitive, right? So that's usually the first qualification. Is the process manual and repetitive? If yes, proceed. Is the process rules-based, right? Is there a certain way of executing that process? Again, if yes, proceed. Are there low exception rates, right? We don't want to automate a process that have a high exception rate. So for example, the input to your process is an Excel spreadsheet, but for every other row in the Excel spreadsheet, the data is inaccurate, or you have to pick up the phone and validate that the data in the Excel spreadsheet is correct. So since the process has potentially high exception rates, then probably that's not a good process to automate. you would want a process where the input is very reliable, right? And the input is in standard readable electronic format, right? You would want to deal with processes that uses Excel as an input, or maybe a structured PDF, or the data can be scraped from a website, right? Like, for example, your bank's website has a table or a tabular section in the website that will list down the currency exchange rate for today, right? So that table on the website is considered a structured electronic readable input, right? So that's a, if your process uses, again, a website or a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet as its input, then that's a good candidate for automation. And of course, you would want to look at processes that are high in volume, because if you have a process that you only execute once a month for a period of 10 minutes, then you don't get that ROI, right? Because you don't get the return on the time you invest in automating that process, because you're really only saving 10 minutes per month when it might take you, let's say, 2 hours, 3 hours to automate that process. Then again, the returns are much lower than the investment that you're putting in. Of course, make sure that the process is also not currently undergoing any re-engineering, or you're not looking to upgrade the application that the process is dependent on in the next couple of months, right? Because if the process is going to change, or the application that the process is dependent on is changing or being upgraded, then wait until the change is complete, meaning the changes have been applied to the process, or the upgrade of your application has been completed. Then automate the process based on the changes after the changes have been implemented. Okay, and you do want processes that will yield significant time savings, and typically you would want to target processes that are performed by a large team, right? Because if you have, let's say, 3 people from finance that's processing invoices, or people from your sales team that's processing orders, then those are good candidates for automation, because you generate a lot of time savings by applying RPA to that process. And of course, look for processes that are mature and stable, processes that are well understood, and hopefully you have a good documentation on the process also, to ensure that you'll be able to automate that process. Or if someone else is developing the automation, you have a good documentation that you can give to that person, so that that person can have a good understanding of what the process looks like and the different steps within that process. So these are the 8 factors to consider when evaluating whether a process is suitable for RPA or not. Okay. All right. So I think at this point in time, I'd like to maybe at least give you a good idea of what RPA looks like, right? So what I will do is switch over to my demo system here, right? I have here a sample sales order entry form, right? And basically, as the per order processor, I need to enter customer orders through this application. And maybe I receive all these orders in an Excel spreadsheet, right? And these are the 3 orders that I received today, right? Order number 1, order number 2, and order number 3. As you can see, there are corresponding fields in my application where I need to enter these information. So maybe I'll, do copy and paste, right? And maybe, I'll put them side by side and just copy and paste the information, right? And for 3 orders that I need to process, maybe it'll take me maybe a minute to a minute and a half to enter each order. And by the way, it's not just the order details, but there's also product details that I need to enter, as you can see there. So for order number 1, maybe there's another Excel spreadsheet that I need to open, right? Order number 1 here. And these are the products that are associated to order number 1. right? As you can see there, this 200 cement at the unit price of 100, 100 sand, the unit price of 200, etc., etc. And that needs to be entered here. Okay, 200, then cement, 100, and then click add item because this is a second row. And then maybe I need to enter the succeeding product items from this order, right? So as you can see, a process that's highly manual, repetitive, because every time I receive the order, I will enter the data into this application, and it's very repetitive and could potentially be high volume. Let's say, depending on your business, maybe you're receiving hundreds, thousands of orders a day, and you have a team of people that are doing the data entry. So this is, I would say, a very good candidate for automation, right? So I'll just close the Excel spreadsheet here, just to refresh my form, because now we actually want a robot to perform the data entry on our behalf, right? So I created a robot here, and a robot doesn't look like a robot. It's just a workflow, right? A workflow that represents each and every step in my process, right? So first and foremost, I have here a step where I'm opening the application. So this application is a web-based application. So I'm just specifying the URL that I need to launch. And you have here an Excel activity, which will open up the orders.xlsx file, right? And you'll see here that for each row in Excel, navigate to the URL and enter the order details. So entering the order details would look like this. Let me just expand this. It will type the order number. So again, keying in the value from the Excel, the order number, the customer name, total order, and then the approved discount. And for each product in the order, it will open up the corresponding Excel spreadsheet and start entering the data into Excel. And then in the end, clicking the submit button, right? So again, these are the steps that we need to execute to ensure that we're entering all the order headers as well as the details of the products. As you can see here, for the details of the product, quantity, product, and unit price are being entered by this robot. So you might, this particular workflow might look intimidating, especially for those of you who are seeing an RPA workflow for the first time. But in the next section of my demo, I will actually show you how to build a robot from scratch. And hopefully when you see that, the process of building a robot using Uipath RPA won't look too intimidating anymore, okay? But for now, let's have a look at this completed RPA workflow, and let's execute it, right? So now the robot's running, and it opens up the Excel spreadsheet. It goes into the website and now starts entering the data. And it's actually opened the product Excel as well, right? And it's now entering the second order, entering the products for the second order. Then now opening the third order and entering the products for the third order, right? And as you can see there, the typing is very fast, right? In fact, if we click on the output window here, we've managed to complete order entry for 3 different orders in 40 seconds, right? So it's not, again, RPA accelerates the execution of your process, and at the same time, it increases the accuracy, right? So what would have taken me, let's say, an hour and a half, a minute and a half, so 4.5 seconds to enter 3 orders, took the robot 40 seconds, right? So imagine how RPA can accelerate the execution of your processes as well as increase the accuracy. All right, and again, the whole point is to, to have a desired outcome, which in this case, or sales order automation, which is to ensure that customers get the product and services that they're ordering much, much sooner, because you're processing their orders much, much quickly, right? Compared to if this process was, or this process continues to be a manual process. Okay. All right. So maybe let me, take a look at some of the questions that are in the chat window, right? There's a question. There are 3 versions of Uipath in your website. What are the differences and which is suitable for which function? So I'll talk about that in a later stage. I'll talk about how to get access to the Uipath platform, whether you want to do an enterprise trial or whether you want to use the free community edition of our product. I'll talk about that later. Okay. Please explain low exception rate again. Yeah. So there's a question about why low exception rate is a factor in deciding whether a process can be automated with RPA or not. So if you look at this example, right, order entry, and the input to my process is an Excel spreadsheet, right? If I can reliably say that when I receive this Excel, all the information is correct, then that would say that this particular process has low exception rates, right? Because I trust that the input that's being given to me is correct, and all I have to do is enter it into the system. But if I receive this Excel and let's say the name of the customer is not found in our database, or the discount it is not something that I can just immediately apply. I have to call someone to verify whether indeed for this particular customer, heavy industries, that I will be giving a 15% discount. Then that's a process that I would say would have a high exception rate, because you cannot trust the input to your process, right? So again, if the input to your process is highly reliable, there are certain, maybe out of 100 orders, only 2 will be for a customer that doesn't exist in your database. Then at least what I can do is process all 98 orders and just leave the 2 orders for human intervention, meaning assign it to a person so the order can be entered manually. Maybe I need to onboard the customer first before I can enter the order. So there's obviously, work that still needs to continue to be done by the person that's responsible for the process, because chances are you may not be able to automate 100% of the steps. Or again, like I said, out of 100 orders, 98 can be processed by a robot usually, but there will be exceptions once in a while that need to be handled by one of your employees. Okay. So if you're looking at that type of ratio, 98% I can process and 2% need mental intervention, then I would say that that's a process that has low exception rate. Okay. But if 50% of the orders I can process automatically, but 50% I still need to process manually, then again, you'll start questioning what is the value of automating a process where you can only automate half of the orders. But if the time savings is still significant, maybe you'll still proceed with automating that process and just leave half of the orders to be processed by hand. Okay, I hope I answered your question, Tina. Okay. Okay, there's another question. Is this workable only in Excel format? Actually, no. Like I said earlier, as long as the input is structured like PDF, or the data is in a website, and you can scrape data from that website, then RPA will be able to work with it. Of course, Excel is a very good input because it's structured, right? There's columns and rows, and like what you saw me do earlier, I can just, let's say, go through each row in Excel and take the data from the order number column, from the customer column, total order number, total order amount column, and the approved discount column, and enter it into my application. it's a lot easier to work with those type of input. Okay.
Hi, Matt. Could we
Yes.
trouble you to just make the text larger? It's kind of small and a bit challenging to read right now.
Okay. Sure. I'm not sure whether I can increase the size. Maybe I could. Yes. Is that better?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, no worries. Thanks for letting me know, Karen. All right, so that's the first segment of my demonstration, right? So the next segment is, I want to build a robot from scratch. Okay, and this involves the Microsoft Office suite of products, right? So let's say I'll describe the process first. Let's say I have this certificate that I want to give to people that attend Uipath training, right? And if my team and I actually in Uipath, we deliver a lot of trainings for our resellers and partners, right? And of course, one of the things you look forward to after completing a training is receiving a certificate. But if there are, let's say, 50 attendees in one training course, imagine I have to spend probably an hour typing their first name, last name, the course that they've attended, and the date of issue, and send that certificate. Or first is I have to convert to PDF and then send that certificate out via email, which will obviously take 1 hour of my time away from my day-to-day. And that I would consider is unproductive work because it's manual, repetitive. I'm not adding a lot of value to my company by entering data into a certificate template and then emailing that certificate. Of course, it's still important, an important process. Again, people that attend the training look forward to receiving the certificate. But if I can automate this particular process, then potentially it will allow me to save an hour, maybe every week. Let's say we have we deliver a lot of trainings, and sometimes we have trainings that happen on a weekly basis, right? That will allow me to save 1 hour a week. And as you can see, as I build this robot, it takes less than an hour to actually build the robot. So in fact, even if I run this automation once, I already get the returns on my investment because I spent less than an hour creating this particular automation, but maybe it will save me an hour already after I run it for the first time. Okay, so we have this certificate template. And at the same time, I have, let's say, the attendance list of my training for, of course, for the sake of not spending too much time executing the robot. I only have 7 rows in my Excel, with the first row being the header. So I have here the first name, the last name, the email address of the attendees, the date of issue of the certificate, the course that they've attended, right? So I have all this information maybe from my registration list, right? These are the people that attended my training. So what I want to do is basically take the information from this Excel spreadsheet and replace these texts in my certificate template. And then after I create the certificate, I want to send the certificate out to the attendee. And again, fortunately, I have their email addresses here. So I can also automate the process of sending the certificates. Okay, so I want to build this robot, right? So let's just have a look at this. I have here an empty process flow, right? So like I said, we'll build this particular automation from scratch. All right. So first and foremost, I want to open my Excel because the Excel file has the information about the attendees and the course that they attended, their first name, last name, email address, right? So I'll open the attendance list, right? And I'll reference this later as my attendance list. So I'll just change the reference there, right? I don't need to create it if it exists. I don't need to make changes to the Excel file and tick those, right? And what I can do now is put in what we call a for each Excel row activity, right? I'll drag and drop for each Excel. And for each attendee in the Excel spreadsheet called attendance list, sheet 1, right? So where did sheet 1 come from? Sheet 1 is actually the name of the sheet. Attendance list is the name of the Excel, right? So I'm referencing for each row in this particular worksheet called sheet 1. This is what this means, right? This particular worksheet called sheet 1 has headers. As you can see in the Excel, it has a header row, right? So there's labels like first name, last name, email, date of issue, and so on. Okay. So for each row in the Excel, what do I want to do? I want to create a certificate. And that certificate, my template is a PowerPoint, right? So what I'll do is go to the PowerPoint section of my activity palette window on the left, and I would say use PowerPoint presentation. Drag and drop that to my workflow. And again, specify the certificate template. So in this case, I'm opening up this certificate underscore template.ppt, right? And again, I don't need to make changes to this particular PowerPoint because I will convert to PDF and I will save the PDF instead of saving the PowerPoint file. And I don't need to create it because it already exists. Okay. So for each for each row, I want to open up the PowerPoint and do a text replacement activity. So replace text in presentation, right? So basically, what I need to do is just replace first name, last name with the actual first name and last name of the attendee. Replace this course name with the name of the course and replace this date of issue with the date of issue from the Excel, right? So how do we do that? Find what? So let's look for first name, right? And replace it with the value from the current row in the Excel and take the value from the first name column, right? As you can see there. And then I'll do this a few more times. Drag and drop another replace text activity. This time around, looking for last name, replacing it with the value from the current row in Excel, and taking data from the last name column, right? And do this a few more times, 2 more times, one for course name and date of issue, right? Course name. And lastly, I'll look for, date of issue. And replace that text with the actual date of issue that you can find in the Excel, right? And save presentation as PDF. I have that activity as well. So my PowerPoint presentation can be saved as an Excel file. So what I can do here is, let's say, put it in this particular directory and just say certificate. Okay. And what I can do is also, it will always create a PDF with the same file name, right? In this case, it will always create certificate.pdf. But let's say I want to make the file different every time it's created. So what I'll do is, maybe, let's say certificate underscore, then I'll indicate the first name, underscore last name, underscore the course name. So this will be the file name of the PDF, right? So it will be dynamically generated. Every time I save the presentation as PDF, the file name will say certificate underscore the first name of the attendee underscore the last name of the attendee underscore the course name, right? So now I've created a workflow that reads the Excel, and for every row in the Excel, create a certificate using PowerPoint, and then save the PowerPoint file as a PDF, right? But the last step, which is to send an email to the attendee attaching the PDF, is something that we need to add now, right? So I use Excel. I use Outlook as my email client. So all I have to do is drag and drop the Outlook activity into my process flow and just say I want to use this particular account, right? This is just my work email. And I want to send an email. Okay. Notice that for the mail activities, I can also send calendar invites. I can do forwarding of email. I can save email attachments. So there's plenty of other activities that you can do on Outlook or with Gmail or Outlook 365. But in this case, I'm simply sending an email for my as part of my process, right? And who is the recipient? The recipient is the attendee. Since I have the email address in the email column in the Excel, I can specify that as well, right? Now it's sending an email to this particular attendee, and I can indicate a subject, right? So for example, your completion certificate, or then I'll enter the course name. You can see there, right? So this particular text will be replaced by the name of the course. And I can also put in some, message in the body of the email. So dear, and the first name of the attendee, then comma. Please find attached your completion certificate for the course, then course name, right? Okay, period. Something like that, right? I hope you can start using the knowledge gained from the training in your job, something like that, right? And then I'll sign off. Okay, click save. And I can also tick save as draft if I don't want to send it out immediately, meaning it will just be saved in my, my draft folder. So if you untick, the email will be sent out automatically. So for the purposes of demo, I'll just tick save as draft, and you'll actually see that once the emails are generated, they are in the draft folder. So what file am I going to attach, right? Of course, the file I'm going to attach is the PDF that we created in the save presentation as PDF step. So what I'll do is just, I don't want to be typing this information again. So I just copied it, and now I'm going to paste it here. There you go. Save. So we actually now have a working robot, right? Again, let's recap the steps. It opens the attendance list Excel file, right? And for each row in that Excel file, opening sheet 1, we will open up PowerPoint, replace the text in that PowerPoint. So the first name field, first name token text. I call this a token because I created specific placeholders, right? These are tokens: first name token, last name token, the course name token, and the date of issue token, right? We are replacing those tokens with the actual first names and last names and course names and the attendees date of issue, right? We're replacing all of those texts and then creating a PDF out of the PowerPoint and then sending it out via email, as you can see here. Okay, so let's close all this because the robot will actually open up all these files again on our behalf. Of course, just like anything that you write, you have to save. And I'll click on the Run Project button. So the robot's going to run. It opened the Excel, and now it's launching PowerPoint. It's doing it in the background though, but notice below the PowerPoint icon keeps appearing because it's opening the PDF, the PowerPoint, saving it as PDF, and then closing it and then opening it up again, right? So now the automation's done. And if I switch over to my draft folder here, notice that there's a few new emails that's been created. And let's look at this particular email here. It's a certificate that will be sent to Terry Sobeski, right? So notice that it has all the subject that I've entered, but again, the subject is dynamically specified because Uipath POC skills training is the name of the course that this person attended, right? And of course, this person is first name is Terry, so our greeting to him says, "Dear Terry," right? And let's look at the attachment. It's a completion certificate in PDF format that indicates the name, the person, the first name and last name of that person, the course name, and then the date of issue. I think I might have mistyped the date there. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is again, the completion certificate, right? Which we were able to automatically generate, and we can actually send this email out as well. Again, if I didn't indicate save as draft, the email would have gone out straight away. But in this case, since I saved this particular message as draft, if I want to send it out, all I have to do is click on the send button in Outlook, and it will send this out automatically also. Okay. All right. I hope that was a good example of how RPA can help you automate some of the manual repetitive work that you do. And usually if that particular process involves, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, a web page, or, even SAP or Salesforce or any other application, actually, we're able to support any application that you can run on your desktop, right? The robot's going to be able to interact with it. So yeah, hopefully this is a good example of what RPA can do for you. And as I said, if I had, 100 participants in the training, I would be spending a few hours creating that certificate. But as you saw, it took me 15 minutes, maybe less, to actually create an automation using Uipath RPA. Okay. Okay. So there are still some active questions. Can it be used together with cloud storage? So I guess you're referring to, let's say, OneDrive from Microsoft or Google Drive from Google. In fact, yes, we do have activities as well that allow you to upload, download files from OneDrive or from Google Drive. Those are pre-built activities. So just like how you saw me drag and drop, for example, the send mail activity, or drag and drop the save presentation as PDF activity, we also have activities for OneDrive and Google Drive that you can drag and drop into your workflow. So that's quite easy to do also. Yeah, I hope I answered that question. What else? What is the accuracy percentage for RPA? Are there any potential error along the way? So this is a very good question from Daryl. Daryl, thank you for asking this question. The reality is the robot will be as accurate as how you've designed it to be, right? Because the reality, as you saw, I built this automation on issuing a training certificate. So if I don't do a good job, then chances are the robot will not work half the time. But if I do a good job, like for example, first and foremost, I created the proper format for my certificate, right? So first and foremost is I have an attendance list that, yeah, I mistyped some of the information here. But yeah, I created an attendance list that's very structured, right? Because this is probably the registration data that I received from the training team, right? These are, they give me the first name, last name, email address, date of issue, and the course name. So I'll make use of this as input. And if I can trust that the input is correct, then chances are I can be 100% accurate when I develop my automation, right? And I made sure, for example, that my certificate template looks a certain way, right? And specified tokens that I can easily remember. The token for, or a placeholder for first name is, the bracket first name, and for last name, it's bracket last name, right? And so on and so forth. So if you standardize your process and ensure that the data that you receive for that process is very reliable, then chances are you could get to close to 100% accuracy, if not 100%. Of course, there will always be errors along the way. So what you need to incorporate in your workflow is, for example, there's a step here, right, which is to send email. What if in the Excel spreadsheet, the email was left blank? There's no email address for a specific attendee. So what I can do is, of course, add some if-then statement here that says if the email is empty, then do not execute this send email. And maybe add a data point in the Excel that says this particular row was not processed, right? So that I can open up the Excel later after the automation has ran, and I know, okay, this particular row was not processed, and I might have to manually create the certificate for this person and send that to that person once I receive the email address from my training team, right? So again, there will be exceptions in any process, and you just need to make sure that your automation does some of the data validation and does some of the exception handling, meaning, again, if there's missing data, flag that row as a to-do for a person in your team, right? So that we know after this automation has executed, which attendee still has not received his certificate. Okay. So I hope I answered that question, Daryl. There's also a question, is it expensive to adopt? Yeah, so I would say this, of course, I mean, I can't say whether it's expensive or not because cost is relative. But I will tell you what cost is associated to automation, right? One is your time, because although it's easy to automate, you do need to spend time learning how to automate, and then you need to spend time automating your process. So the effort that you spend is not free, right? It's cost to you and your company. The second component in this is the license, because RPA is not free if you're using it for commercial purposes, meaning you're using it within your company to automate your business process. If you're automating something in your personal life, like for example, I don't know, maybe you have to go to a website every week to enroll your kid to enrichment class, something like that, or you need to go to a web page of your gym because you need to reserve a slot to do your workout. Yeah, you might want to automate that process because you do it, let's say, 3 times a week. It's a very repetitive and you don't want to forget, right? Maybe create a robot that will help you sign up for your gym classes, or get you a slot so that you can go to your gym, right? So these are things that you can automate with UiPath. You install UiPath on your home computer, automate something in your personal life. You can actually use UiPath for free. We have a community edition that's free to use. So there's the time and effort component to cost, and there's also the licensing cost. If we're talking about using UiPath for commercial purposes. Okay, so those are the cost elements, right? Of course, you do need computers to run this as well, so that might add up to the cost. But if you're using the same computer that you use for work, then that's not a whole lot of additional cost in terms of running the robot on a computer. Okay, so yeah, there's another good question. Are the terms RPA, BPA, and IA interchangeable, right? So RPA is Robotic Process Automation, BPA is Business Process Automation, and IA, Intelligent Automation. Are these interchangeable? I would say to a certain extent they are. They are interchangeable. In a way, IA is probably the term that will encapsulate RPA and BPA as technologies. When you talk about intelligent automation, in a way, that's a superset. When you talk about intelligent automation, it will have, the technology that you can adopt would be either BPA or RPA, and it will have some elements of AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? Because hence why it's called intelligent automation. Because RPA, if you look at that particular technology alone, it really focuses on, automating the mechanical aspects of what we do on our computer, the typing and the clicking. It automates some of the things that we do with our eyes. Like, for example, opening Excel and looking at the data in Excel and then taking it and then entering it into a system, right? So it automates what we do with our eyes, what we do with our hands. But RPA by itself doesn't automate what we do with our brain, right? Which is the decision-making aspect. Do I approve this loan or not? Do I pay this insurance claim or not? These are things that we typically depend on humans to make the decision, right? So intelligent automation attempts to use automation technology, again, RPA plus machine learning, to see how humans make decisions. So if I have a history of all the loans that were approved and rejected by my bank, I could use machine learning to analyze the pattern at which decisions are made regarding approval and rejection of loans. And if I can create a machine learning model, what I can do is make use of that to also automate the things that a loan assessor would have done, which is to look at the data about the person that's requesting for a loan, his credit history, and so on and so forth, and decide approve or reject. And that's something that can now be done by machines as well, if you have enough data to develop a machine learning model. So intelligent automation, I would say, is a superset, and intelligent automation would typically include technologies like RPA and BPA. Okay, I hope I answered that question, Nuradila. All right, so we'll get to some of the other questions. There are actually a lot of open questions, but we'll get to them later. We'll hopefully get to as many of them as possible, okay? But I do want to move forward with our presentation. And I would like to sort of talk about, what makes all of this possible, right? And I'll talk about the Uipath Enterprise RPA platform. Of course, there are other alternatives when it comes to RPA. There are other vendors that are offering RPA solutions, but I'm from Uipath, so I'll talk about Uipath, right? So to get started with RPA, you actually need these three components from Uipath. You need Studio, which is in fact what I showed you just now. which is the user interface that you use to build automation, right? So the drag and drop that you saw me do, the workflow that I built just now, I built on Uipath Studio. So Uipath Studio is what you use to digitize your process, right? To build your automation workflows. After you built your automation using Uipath Studio, what you'll need to do is publish that automation to Uipath Orchestrator. So Uipath Orchestrator is like the manager of the digital workforce. This is the application that you use to define robots, specify what automation each robot will be running, and which humans have access to those robots, right? Because if I create a robot that, let's say, automates payment of my vendors, I don't want just anybody to be able to access that robot. I want the specific person in finance who is authorized to issue payments to be the only person that can execute that automation. So you do all of those, governance on Uipath Orchestrator. And then lastly, when it's time to execute the automation, you do it on Uipath Robots. Okay, so Uipath Robots is obviously the piece of software that will execute the automation that you've developed in Studio. If you're still developing and testing your automation, you do it in Studio. But if you are already done with developing the automation and you've done several testing and everything's reliable, you only need the robot to be able to execute. Yeah, you don't need Studio to do that. Just the robot. Okay. And these are the three components that make up the core platform of Uipath, right? Because these are I would say, the three components that you'll need to get started. Okay. Uipath Studio, as I said, is a easy to use drag and drop designer, right? Design your automation visually, kind of like what you saw me do earlier without code. You can use, there is actually a recording functionality. You can record the things that you do on an application and it will automatically create the process flow, right? So you show, in a way, you're showing the robot how you perform your process and it will automatically create the workflow on your behalf. Or you can do it like I did earlier, which is just drag and drop the activities into your workflow, right? And there's also templates that allows you to get started in case you're new to RPA. You don't know what activities to drag and drop. There's also templates that help you build a skeleton of the workflow, right? Based on your use case, right? And there are also a lot of pre-built activities. Like I mentioned earlier, we have for Outlook, for Office 365, for Google G Suite. We also have adapters for reading and writing Excel and PDF, connectors for applications like Salesforce, Tableau, Oracle, etc., etc. Okay. And Uipath Orchestrator allows you to manage and optimize your robot workforce, right? Because again, you do want to make sure that only authorized individuals are able to access robots and run automation on them. And at the same time, you do want, sort of a concept of entitlement. You have to be entitled to run an automation before you could actually do it. If not, then you should not have the ability to access and execute that automation. So all of these, role-based access control, you do within Orchestrator. And when we create automation, we can create two types of automation. The first being attended. When we talk about attended automation, we're using an attended robot that, and the attended robot, you can just install it on your computer. And as and when you need to run an automation, you just invoke that automation to run. Like I'll give you an example. I have here what we call the Uipath Assistant, right? And I have here a list of automation that I can execute, right? And I'll manually trigger them as and when I need to run the automation. Like for example, like I said, you don't need to to execute your automation in Uipath Studio, right? So I'm closing Uipath Studio already. What I'm going to do is just use my Uipath Assistant, which has a running robot in the background. And this is just the front end to that robot, right? This is Uipath Assistant, and all I have to do is click on the play button. Let's say I want to run the data entry automation. I'll click that. The robot wakes up, opens an application, and opens an Excel file. And notice that it starts entering the data from the Excel, and then capturing the transaction number, and then putting it back into the Excel spreadsheet, right? As you can see there. Okay. So all you have to do is click on the play button in the Uipath Assistant, and your automation runs immediately. Notice here that this particular automation is running on the foreground, right? Meaning, chances are I will need to leave the robot to do its thing, meaning to run the process. And at this particular point in time, I am not productive because I cannot use the computer. However, we do have a feature we call picture-in-picture execution, meaning the automation runs in a separate window, right? So I can, let's say, run the same data entry automation, but run it in picture-in-picture mode or PIP mode. So I'll do that. I'll run this particular automation in picture-in-picture mode. And notice that there's another window that opens, and then the robot is doing the typing in that particular window while I'm, let's say, busy doing other things. Like maybe I'm entering orders into my order entry form, something like that. While, in fact, the robot is running and doing the data entry in a separate window. So the execution of the automation doesn't interrupt what I'm doing on my computer, right? So something like that. Okay, so we do have what we call the picture-in-picture mode capability when you're using attended robots, so that both you and the robot can actually use the computer at the same time. All right. I hope that's useful. Again, attended robot is for automation that the human triggers as and when the automation needs to run. So, and the robot runs under the supervision and direct control of a person. However, there are automation that can run on an unattended basis, right? Meaning the robot will just run the automation based on an event or based on a schedule. Like, let's say every hour, on top of the hour, the order entry automation will run, and whatever Excel spreadsheet I've stored in a shared folder will get processed by the robot, right? So that's what we call an unattended robot, because the robot wakes up every hour, checks whether there are Excel files in a shared folder, and then starts doing data entry for those orders, right? So that's what we call an unattended robot. So what is the main difference? Attended robots are robots that run under your supervision. So the robot will only work if you're working, right? Because you need to manually trigger the automation. Unattended robots, on the other hand, are robots that run without any human supervision. They're typically really useful in batch processing or execution of automation with high volumes, right? And since it can automatically run a process based on a schedule, an unattended robot can be productive 24 hours a day, right? So that's the main difference between attended robots and unattended robots. Attended robots are productive when humans are working, but unattended robots can be productive even without any human supervision. I said previously that attended robots would typically run on your computer. Unattended robots, on the other hand, run on dedicated computers, meaning you install the robot and in its main, only the robot uses that particular computer, and hence why we would typically use a virtual machine or a virtual desktop to run unattended robots, because these are not Windows devices that are meant for use by a person. It's meant for use by only the robot. Hence why you deploy them to virtual machines or virtual desktops. Okay. Right. I hope that was that this description of both attended and unattended is useful. Okay. All right. So we have, of course, a product that we sell as well as offer to the community free of use. However, to be able to be effective in RPA, you need additional enabling technologies and additional, learning resources, right? So I mentioned earlier that we have an online learning platform called Uipath Academy. And this is something that you can access for free, right? So in fact, I have the website up and running here in my browser. And this is the website called Uipath Academy. And the URL is academy.uipath.com, right? You can create an account for yourself, start learning about Uipath RPA without paying a single cent. Uipath Academy is free for use by anyone. And all you need is a valid email address, whether it's your work email or your personal email. It doesn't matter. You can get access to Uipath Academy for free. We have courses on how to become an RPA developer, right? Or how to become an RPA business analyst. Maybe your desire is to understand RPA so that you can look at the process and assess whether it's suitable for automation, but you leave it to someone more experienced to do the development, right? So you can become a business analyst by attending courses in Uipath, or if you're interested around security, around the infrastructure that runs the Uipath RPA platform, we also have courses for infrastructure engineers, right? Again, all these courses are available for free. And depending on what sort of skill you want to develop, whether it's a developer or a business analyst or infrastructure, we have designed courses necessary to upskill yourself for that particular discipline. Like for example, if I click on RPA infrastructure engineer, so these are the courses that we recommend you attend in the Uipath Academy. Okay. So that's, when it comes to learning. We also have industry recognized certification. So if you go to certificate.uipath.com, you can actually get information around how to go for certification. We have an associate RPA developer certification, as well as a certified RPA developer certification. So associate developer and sort of a full developer certification. It's not for free though. You have to pay because there's a third-party testing center that administers the certification. But if this is something that you want to achieve as part of your work, or something that you want to take on as a learning objective, do consider signing up for certification as well, right? There's of course companies that work with us, our global business partners like NTUC LearningHub, who delivers RPA courses on Uipath's behalf. So Ravi and his team actually teach Uipath RPA courses at NTUC LearningHub. So do visit their website for information about the course agenda as well as the cost for attending the RPA training. At the same time, we do have other websites as well. We have a website we call Uipath Marketplace, where you can download some reusable artifacts. Like if you want to automate a specific process, right? Maybe there's already someone else that automated that same process. And all you have to do is download an existing project from Uipath Marketplace, and then just make some minor modifications, and you already have an automated process for yourself that you didn't spend a lot of time building because you made use of someone else's work, right? So Uipath Marketplace, we curate some reusable components that are submitted by our community of users. And if we look at the submission and it doesn't infringe any copyright, there's no malicious code, and the automation works, right? Of course, that's an important criteria, that the automation that's being shared is actually working, then we publish it in our marketplace. And you do have a combination of reusable components that are developed by Uipath, as well as reusable components that are developed by our community of users. Okay. And we, of course, also have a community of users that are that you can go to if you want help. And we have a website called Uipath Forum, which is this, right? So Uipath Forum, and you can post all sorts of technical questions or how-to questions across different topics. Like, for example, if you want help with Uipath Assistant, you can go here and post your question. Some statistics I saw about community is usually a lot of the questions get answered within the day. So, and that's because we have a very good community members who are very, very active, who are constantly looking for questions that are posted in the various topics. And a lot of the community members, of course, volunteer their personal time to actually respond to certain questions. Okay, so do sign up for an account as well in our Uipath Forum to ensure that as you go through the academy courses, as you try out our product, that you're able to rely on a large community user base to get support from. Okay, and this is, of course, available to all our forum or our community members across the world. So in fact, you're not just reaching out to people within Singapore, you're reaching out to a global community of Uipath users. Okay, so your reach is actually quite wide. All right, and of course, we have partner technologies as well that you can use. Like, for example, we have partnerships with Microsoft and Google, IBM. If you want to, let's say, make use of facial recognition, facial matching as you want to leverage on those technologies as part of your RPA workflow, you could tap on, let's say, the Microsoft Face API to be able to do facial matching, right? Whether, let's say, the picture in a selfie and the picture on the IC is the same person, right? There are some technologies like that available from Microsoft. So we have partnerships so that you can leverage on that technology and make it part of your RPA workflow. Okay. And like I said, Uipath is open to learn, use, and share. From a learning perspective, you can get training from NTUC LearningHub, or you can go for online training. The course offered by NTUC LearningHub is an instructor-led training. The one offered in Uipath Academy is an online training, a self-paced online training. And again, make use of the community forum so that, to gain additional knowledge by asking questions, okay? It's also open to use. If you go to our website, www.uipath.com, there is actually a Try Uipath free button right on top. You click it, and it takes you straight away to this page. If you want to try out Uipath on behalf of your company, we do recommend either trying out our automation cloud, which is our cloud-based solution for enterprise, or if you want to install on-premise, then try out our on-premise version, right? Because we have a cloud version and an on-premise version. If you only want to try out Uipath Studio, you can go ahead also. Studio only, no orchestrator, no unattended robots, just Uipath Studio to develop and try and run within Studio, right? Run your automation within Studio. You can also opt to just try out Studio without Orchestrator. If you have an automation project for your own personal use, meaning you will install UiPath on your personal computer, not your work computer, do sign up for a community account. And again, you can, if you already have a Gmail or a Microsoft login, there's also single sign-on for Google, Microsoft, and in fact, LinkedIn also. Or if you want to create a standard username and password, an account with a standard username and password combination, you can also sign up with email as opposed to using the single sign-on for Google and Microsoft and LinkedIn, okay? So these are your choices, whether to go for cloud for enterprise, on-prem for enterprise or just Studio, or sign up for our automation cloud for community. The automation cloud for community is free forever. There's no expiration date for your community account. Or I guess I don't want to promise forever, but as long as we're offering UiPath automation cloud for community, then it will remain to be free. The enterprise trial, whether it's a cloud or on-prem, is a 60-day trial. Okay. So hopefully that helps you get started, get access to the technology that I showed you just now, as well as get access to learning resources and get access to a global community of UiPath users. Okay. And of course, a lot of us learn much faster if we have an instructor right in front of us. Then there's also the NTUC LearningHub option of attending an instructor-led training. And usually for some of you who do not like self-paced, you want to be forced into a room to, and complete your learning within a few days, then I would say instructor-led training is probably the option for you. If you want self-paced and you can only allocate, let's say, a couple of hours a day, then maybe learning via the UiPath Academy website is much more preferred for you. Okay. All right. So I have a few more slides that talk about how to prioritize processes for RPA. But before we go there, I know there's still plenty of questions in the Q&A window. There's a question on pricing structure. Unfortunately, that's not something that I would like to discuss in this particular session. But do go to our website, and we have a Contact Us section in our website if you want to understand the pricing structure for the enterprise version of our product. Do reach out to us via the Contact Us form in our website. Okay. There are also questions. Would it be possible to send a notification via other messaging formats like SMS or WhatsApp? So we currently do not have out-of-the-box activities for WhatsApp and for SMS, right? But if you have, let's say, the WhatsApp desktop, right, that you can install on your Windows machine, since the robot can type information into any application, you can also add a type into activity that types data on the WhatsApp message prompt, and then maybe a click activity, drag and drop a click activity that will click the send button. So that's definitely something that you could also automate using UiPath, sending out of WhatsApp messages. But I think if you're a business, there's also a business API for WhatsApp. So UiPath can also integrate with any web services API. So that might be a better option actually, because the reliability, if you're using the WhatsApp business API, will be a lot higher compared to automating typing of the actual message in the WhatsApp desktop application. Okay. So there was a question, out of curiosity, where was this app developed? Singapore, Philippines, India? The UiPath, the company, was founded in Romania, But now our headquarters is in the US. And when it comes to R&D, research and development, we do it in Romania, we do it in the US, and we do it in India and other parts of the world as well. We have a global development team actually. Okay. So there was a question around mail merge. Is it similar to mail merge? Well, maybe the example that you saw earlier, issuing training certificate, was kind of like mail merge, except it's not as simple as just populating a Word document and then sending the Word document out via email, right? There's you had PowerPoint, you convert it to PDF and then send it out via email. So to a certain extent, it's kind of like mail merge, but I would say RPA does much, much more, as you saw. It can also do data entry in the examples that I showed, right? Order entry, or you saw me running the automation also for, again, entering data in Excel to a custom developed application. Okay. Yeah, there's a question around the community license and the paid license. Again, I said community is free to use as long as you're using it for your personal endeavors. You're not using it for commercial purposes or to run your business. If you're using Uipath to run your business, then you should be paying our enterprise subscription. Okay. Let's see what else I can respond to. Is it possible to run the robot in the cloud? So that's a really good question. At the moment, it is possible to run the robots on the cloud, like Azure or Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services. However, you do have to pay for your own cloud subscription, meaning you spin up, let's say, an Azure VM running Windows. You install the Uipath robot on that particular Windows Azure VM, and you can run your automation on the Windows Azure VM. But you are paying for the subscription for running that Windows VM. What's in our roadmap is the ability to run the robot on the Uipath cloud. So which means you don't have to worry about signing up for your own Azure subscription or Amazon subscription or Google subscription. You pay Uipath, and Uipath takes care of running the robot on your behalf. But this is in our roadmap. It's not available today. What's available today is your ability to run the robot on VMs that you spin up in your own cloud subscription. Okay. So yeah, I think I answered some of the other questions already. So the Uipath community has 3 software components: the Studio, Robot, and Orchestrator. Yes, if you're using community, you have access to all 3. You also have the Studio, Orchestrator, Assistant / Robot. Yeah, you have all 3. The Orchestrator for our community edition is actually hosted in our cloud. So you don't even have to worry about installing Orchestrator on your own. We provision it in our cloud and you're able to use it for free, including, of course, coupled with Studio and the Uipath robot and Uipath Assistant. So, someone asked, in the previous versions of Uipath, there was no picture-in-picture function, right? So earlier, I was able to automate, execution of automation in picture-in-picture, as you saw me do earlier. This is actually a feature that's less than a year old. This was made available as an experimental feature in April 2020. But we made it available for general use in October 2020. So it's a feature that's about almost a year old actually, but it was experimental at the beginning, and then we made it available for general use only since October last year. So I would say it's a mature solution, right? But make sure if you're developing an automation that needs to run within picture-in-picture, make sure you test, right? Make sure you test and that the process will run perfectly in picture-in-picture mode, because there are some applications that do not behave well if it's running picture-in-picture. One example would be Google Chrome, actually. If you have Google Chrome, let's say, running on your main desktop and also running in picture-in-picture, it doesn't work, right? So you have to make sure that you close Google Chrome on your main desktop so that your automation can run in picture-in-picture and launch Google Chrome. Okay, so there are some, I would say, some things to consider. And the best way to determine whether your process can run picture-in-picture is to test. Because if you're as you're building automation, I'll launch Uipath Studio again. As you're building automation in Uipath Studio, you could actually run the automation in picture-in-picture mode. So let me open this up. If you want to run in picture-in-picture, you do have that option. Don't click on the play button, click on the drop down, and you can select run in PIP. Okay. If you do that, then the automation will run within that small window. Okay. All right. I hope I answered that question. There's a comment. Why is such a tongue twist name, Uipath? Yeah, I guess with practice, it will no longer be a tongue twister. I've worked for Uipath for more than 2 years, so I say the name of the company every day. So it's no longer a tongue twister. Okay. So, yep, I think I've covered some of those additional questions. We'll just go through some slides again, and then we'll go back to the questions, yeah? So how to prioritize processes for RPA? So I'm quoting Bill Gates. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second, that automation is applied to an inefficient operation, it will magnify the inefficiency. So to a certain extent, Bill Gates is correct, because if you apply automation on an inefficient process, then chances are you'll just get to the errors much quickly, because the robot runs faster, right? So if you apply on a process that's efficient and well structured, again, do consider the 8 things that I mentioned earlier, right? If you make use of those 8 factors to determine whether a process is suitable for RPA, you apply some standardization, then the automation will definitely yield a good potential ROI for you. Okay. And automation is not a project, it's a journey, right? Because in any company, business processes change. When you automate the current form of your process, chances are, if there's a change in the process, you have to rebuild the automation as well. Maybe not from scratch. You'll need to make changes to the automation. Maybe you won't spend the same amount of time automating. You might spend a small fraction of the initial time that you spent to build the automation to just make modifications if your process changes. So do consider automation as something that needs to happen on an ongoing basis, because none of your processes will remain static forever, right? There will be changes. And at the same time, if you automate process A, there's definitely another process B, that could be automated as well. And if you're already making use of, Uipath Studio, you have a subscription, to Uipath Orchestrator, you have a subscription to Uipath Robots, then might as well get the robot to run more and more automation. Like, for example, I said earlier that unattended robots can potentially be used 24/7 because it can run processes without any human supervision. So if you're using an unattended robot to just run one process for 1 hour, then that means the robot is idle for 23 hours, right? Then might as well find additional automation opportunities. If you can't find it in your department, maybe speak to another department and see whether they'll find use for RPA, so that you can add more work to your unattended robots. And hopefully the unattended robot is running something all the time. And that's really how you could increase the returns on your investment in the license subscription for unattended robots. Okay. And yeah, in the past, due to the limitations of RPA, you basically look at processes that are structured, rules-based, etc. But the reality is, the Uipath platform is also combining AI and ML skills to offer much greater automation capability, right? So we used to have a question, how to identify processes eligible for RPA-based automation. And it's now been replaced with how to prioritize processes for RPA-based automation, because now if you introduce RPA to your company, chances are people will raise their hands and say, I have this process that's very manual and repetitive and involves a large team. Can we automate it with RPA? You'll actually end up having a lot of process that could potentially be automated. So now the question is no longer what processes are suitable for RPA, but now the question is, how do I prioritize all these automation opportunities that I have, right? Because again, the paradigm has shifted because of the wide adoption of AI ML. Modern RPA tools like Uipath now offer cognitive skills that are powerful enough to handle tasks that are typically reserved for humans because it requires a human's ability to make decisions. But now, because of cognitive automation capabilities, we can automate that part as well, right? And again, prioritization of the business benefits and an ROI of your RPA projects is typically what needs to be done. You look at an an automation opportunity and assess what sort of value will it bring to the company. Will it allow us to hit our KPIs from a revenue perspective, our KPIs from a customer satisfaction perspective? Will it allow us to hit our KPIs from an employee engagement perspective? These are the things that you need to start looking at to assess whether it's worth investing in automating a particular process. Okay, because the technology is mature enough that if you have, it's a computer-centric process, chances are it's something that can be automated with Uipath. So now you can really focus on identifying what to automate and then how to prioritize, right? And this is a process prioritization cheat sheet, right? First is identify what processes can be automated. And again, use that sort of 8 decision factors that I mentioned earlier. And the second step is to assess the benefits. What is the estimated cost savings, right, of automating a process? What are the potential additional revenue that we can gain through automation? What will be the improvement in customer experience, right? Actually, cost savings is one factor, but you can also look at cost prevention as another factor, right? Let's say I have 20 people in finance now, but we intend to double the volume of our business in 2021. So does that mean I have to hire 10 more people for my finance team? Maybe not if I automate some of my processes, because now our finance team is no longer bogged down by the manual and repetitive. They're spending more time, um, identifying improvements in the way we, let's say, in finding ways to improve cost optimization, let's say, right? And the 10 people that I have in finance is enough, even if I double my volume, because, in a way, the robots act like additional workforce for you, right? Because it's running some of your repetitive, high volume work. Okay. So from that perspective, you no longer need to hire 10 more people. Therefore, your that's part of, preventing additional costs from being incurred, right? And after you've assessed the benefits of all your automation projects, you now need to start prioritizing, because everyone has limited time, right? If you upskill yourself in RPA, it's not like you don't no longer need sleep. You still need to rest. You still need to spend time with your family. So the time that you can allocate to automate processes is still finite, right? It's limited. So if you have 10 processes to automate, then how do you pick which one's the best one to automate first, right? And again, you use the information that you've captured in step 2 to prioritize which ones to automate first, okay? And most importantly, does the automation support your KPIs around cost savings, cost prevention? Does it allow you, does it support your KPIs around revenue growth? Does it support your KPIs around improving employee engagement? So these are some of the decisions that you have to make, okay? To be able to prioritize which process to automate first. All right, and of course, when it comes to assessing what process to automate first, you do want to consider the complexity of the process as well, because maybe you don't want to start with automating a very complex process. Because when you start, if it's your first time adopting RPA and you pick a very complex process to automate, guess what? You don't see the benefit until maybe a month, 2 months later. But if you automate, a simple to medium complexity type of process, then chances are you'll see the benefits within a couple of weeks, maybe a month, right? So sometimes when you adopt a new technology like RPA, it's important to show quick wins, right? Because if you show quick wins, then chances are you'll get the support of your boss, you'll get the support of your executives, you'll get the support of your other team members. So our recommendation is also to look at the complexity of the process, and how you assess is by looking at, okay, how many screens does the robot need to go through? Let's say my order entry, the robot has to go to 10 different screens, right? So the number of screens and the number of clicks, the number of type activities would form one factor in terms of assessing complexity. The type of application, maybe I'm dealing with some applications that are not easy to automate because they're very, very old. Or I access them via a terminal or via a virtual desktop, like Citrix. Automation over Citrix is possible, but just slightly more difficult, right? You look at, there are so many variations in my process. So if I need to automate my process, then I have to account for all of those variations. Of course, what you can do is re-engineer the process so that there's a certain standard, right? So that eliminates this complexity. And maybe the input, is it structured? Or are we dealing with invoices that look very different every time it's sent to us by our supplier, right? Like invoices, as you know, will have, different formats, right? It's actually possible to automate invoice processing, even though the invoice formats differ from one supplier to another. But I would say it's not as easy as automating a process where the input is an Excel spreadsheet, right? So you do want to consider the type of input and whether there's any free text involved, like unstructured information that needs to be interpreted. Like, for example, medical diagnosis. it's free text, and the robot needs to interpret what the medical diagnosis is so that it can enter the right diagnostic code if it's a clinical automation, then it's possible with natural language processing. There's technology that exists already that allows you to that allows a robot to read free text and interpret what it means, but it adds complexity to your automation. So you might not want to consider a process that involves interpretation of free text for your first project, right? Again, or I mentioned earlier, if you're accessing an application via a VDI, remote desktop, or Citrix, then it's slightly harder to automate those type of those type of processes as compared to applications that are running natively on your desktop. Okay. Okay, so that's really, what I have in terms of content for you guys today. We still have about 15 minutes, so maybe I'll spend the next 5 minutes to answer some questions, and then we'll leave enough time for the post-event survey to be sent out to you, and you can respond. And I believe there's a prize at the end as well, right? So I'll try and get through the questions that are in the Q&A window. Okay. Okay, let me just okay, there's a question. What software or service can I use if I'm on a Mac? Yeah, at the moment, we don't have support for Mac. Actually, I'm running my slides on my Mac laptop, but as you saw, when I need to switch over to my demo, I switch over to my Windows laptop, right? So our robots and Uipath Studio actually currently run only on Windows. No support for Linux, no support for Mac. So unfortunately, Calvin, you do not have an option to develop automation on a Mac at the moment. It's something that we are considering, but at least from what we found is a lot of enterprises that have a lot of repetitive work. They typically run their repetitive work on a Windows computer. Those that use Mac typically are doing creative work, but that's not to say that there's no manual and repetitive activities that run on a Mac, right? Some people use a Mac to do data entry. So there is a use case for supporting Mac. It's just that it's at the moment still under consideration. We haven't started developing Studio and robots that run on Mac. Although, like I said, it is being considered. It's in our roadmap to have the ability to build automation using a browser. So watch out for that. So if it's running on a browser, then you can basically use a browser running on a Mac to build automation as well. But yeah, again, it's still in the works. Okay. So there's a question around how Uipath compares with Automation Anywhere and Microsoft Power Automate. Yeah, those are some additional technologies that you can consider if you have an RPA project, right? We do have a lot of respect for Microsoft and Automation Anywhere, because obviously Uipath will not be where it is today if Automation Anywhere and Microsoft aren't promoting the use of RPA. All of us combined promoting RPA allows a lot more companies to understand the value of RPA, and hence why we have a lot of respect for them. And I don't want to be talking about why we're so much better compared to these products in this particular webinar. I mean, what we encourage you to do is, of course, try out Automation Anywhere and Microsoft Power Automate and Uipath, and decide for yourself what's best fit for your business, what's best fit for your type of use case. Okay. So yeah, marketplace. is Artifact, is it free to download? Majority of the list, the reusable components listed in UiPath Marketplace are free to download and use. There are some that would require you to contact a third-party technology provider. And of course, if that's the case, it will be indicated in the website, okay? But if there's a download button, then chances are you can download it for free and use for free, okay? Is there an RPA reseller service where the reseller builds and manages the RPA requirements of the company? Question from Howard. Yes, Howard, we do have a number of partners and resellers. Again, go to our website, and we have a partner directory in our website so that you can reach out to one of our resellers that are in Singapore or resellers that are in the region. We have, resellers large and small. We have large consulting companies that resell UiPath, but we also have boutique system integrators that are reselling UiPath, and they also offer services to help you build the automation. In case your approach is not to build it yourself, you want to rely on or on RPA professionals to build the automation for you. You have that option, of course, by working with our resellers. If you cannot find the right reseller, to reach out to us directly. Again, use the contact us form on our website to reach out to us regarding how you could start engaging one of our resellers. We can recommend you a few resellers to work with, or if you prefer to work directly with UiPath, we can do that as well. And for those of you that have been asking about pricing, again, we do not publish our retail price on our website. Do use the contact us form if you are interested to understand the costing of a UiPath license subscription. And one of our sales reps would be happy to assist you on any of your pricing questions. Okay. Okay, I think that's what I have prepared for you guys today. Thank you so much for all the questions. I apologize if I was not able to get to your question because there's just so many on the screen at the moment. Ravi has done his best also to answer a lot of the questions by typing in a response. So thanks a lot for that, Ravi. And yeah, that's really it for me. I can hand the remaining time back to the organizers, and I believe they have a post-event survey that they want to